Welcome to South Asia. This is South Asia in Maps or India in Maps. This is your host J Reddy, and we will continue our fascinating journey about the land of gurus, the land of Hindu civilization Punjab, the land of five rivers. And previously we discussed about certain important concepts like Ranjit Singh's Punjab, a bird's eye view, and Ranjit Singh's Punjab compared to the British Punjab, and British Punjab that survived as 1849-47, and so on. And in this talk, we'll discuss about the 1947 partition of Punjab. There are many perspectives you can have. Today, you will be hearing a different perspective. This perspective is not widely known to many people, and this is the perspective that was put forward by the authentic Hindu representatives or nationalist of Voice of India think tank. Mahayogi Sri Ram Swarup, who passed away around about 2000, and Acharya Sitaram Goel ji, who passed away in the beginning of 2107 or so, and Professor Conrad Elst. So the title of today's talk is Punjab 1947 Partition, Ideological Perspective, where Islamic imperialism that was established during the time of Prophet Muhammad, essentially an imperialistic ideology under religious garb, that consolidated on our ancient homeland, Punjab, that is the birthplace of Indus Valley civilization. And it was a major victory, that is the partition of Punjab in 1947, major victory for Islamic imperialism after Battle of Tarain or Thaneshwar, where Maharaja Prithviraj Chauhan, the Chauhan Rajput, was defeated and killed by the Islamic imperialist invader Muhammad Ghori. And then Battle of Panipat, where the rising Maratha power was crushed drastically by again an Islamic invader, Ahmad Shah Abdali, with his local Muslim potentates, satraps like Nazib-ud-Dawla Rohila and Suzza-ud-Dawla of Awadh. And this is the overall view, and we'll talk about the general things, even though that is not the specific for this talk. World War II breakdown, Linlithgow, the Governor Generalship, is a very long term Governor General, 36 to 43, before Lord Wavell and Mountbatten. And Cripps Mission, Linlithgow's offer, Cripps Mission quit India, Simla Conference, and Wavell Palan, and 1945-46 All India General Elections and Provincial Elections, where Muslim League won spectacularly in Muslim majority, Muslim minority constituencies. Cabinet Mission Plan and its failure, Direct Action Day, when the government was formed, interim government under Nehru, and Muslim League declared Direct Action Day, that means direct action at the government, and horrifying Nawkhali riots in Purbi Bengal or East Bengal, and their pastime, like Islamic street rioting and violence as preached by their very hate-filled religious belief systems. And when Lord Mountbatten came and he announced the June 47 plan, and partition plan includes the partition of Punjab, that is the first letter in Pakistan, Punjab, Afghania, that is northwestern province, K for Kashmir, S for Sindh, Stan is a general term, that is a pure land. Therefore, the entire land is impure. The ancient motherland of their forefathers is impure. And as you are more indoctrinated with this hate-filled Islamic ideology, you will think like that. So we will not talk about this. These are the general things that a lot of people talk about. But what is the ideological basis behind the partition of India, or partition of partition of Bengal, partition of Assam, that is Sylhet, and why Nizam of Hyderabad resisted integration, why the ruler of Junagadh joined the Pakistan, and why even Kashmir was divided even though Maharaja Hari Singh acceded to India. All these things have one thing in common: Islamic belief system. A lot of people talk about all these things I mentioned here, but they're only a small part of the entire event. And here, after this presentation, you will get a fascinating idea. Then you will understand what is the real Islamic problem in India. Who partitioned India? A lot of our leaders are telling day and day, a lot of people have just picked up that divide and rule was followed by the British imperialists. They divided the India, and so you clap it. No, the division of India is not done by the British. British are just spectators, or passive role they play. It doesn't mean do credit to them. And they have no serious interest in dividing India. Dividing India is done by Islam. If you say that, you have to have a lot of courage, and you have to understand Islam reasonably well, and you should be able to present it to your audience who are not exposed to these things. That Congress leadership simply lacked. It doesn't mean to blame them entirely. Overall, it is a failure of Hindu intellectuals to read, understand what is written in Quran, Tafsir, Hadith and Sharia, where Muslims were living in India for 1,000 years. After Battle al-Ghazwa by Qasim in Sindh in 700 to 1940, means 1200 years, they lived as conquerors, as traders, as immigrants, as leaders in every mohalla. But Hindus fail to understand what motivates them, why they are very violent, even living so many centuries and being converted from the parent body. That part you will understand today. So the title of this is a generic 1947 Punjab partition, ideological consolidation of Islamic imperialism west of River Ravi or west of Radcliffe Line. That is a major victory for Islamic imperialism after Battle of Thaneshwar or Tharain and after Battle of Panipat, the victory of Lahore Declaration. That means where Jinnah in 1940 declared through a very great challenge to the nation that he want India to be partitioned, his motherland. And pusillanimous Congress leadership just ran away. They didn't have the courage to pick up the gauntlet, even fight for it. If they lost this battle, that is a different story. But they didn't even join the fight. So we'll talk about Voice of India think tank, Mahayogi Sri Ram Swarup, Acharya Sitaram Goel, Professor Koenraad Elst from the Belgium, the concept of Darul Islam and Darul Harb, that is the Islamic territory and enemy's territory. The Islamic concept of Ilm, that is the light, and Jahiliya, that is darkness. And Islamic concept of Mu'mins, Mussalmans or Muslims, believers. Everything else who doesn't believe this sterile dogma. There is an entity called Allah, and he revealed his contents or whatever beliefs to another historic figure, important entity called Muhammad, called Rasul, or a prophet in Islamic theology. And you have to believe it on face value. If you don't believe it, and they will wage a jihad, that is a criminal war, gangsters waging to kill you, convert you to their belief system. And the Islamic theology claims there is a triumph of Ummah. Ummah is a community or a qawm or essentially a Muslim community, Ummah. and Allah has mandated entire planet. So Al-Hind, Al-Sindh to Rasul, that is the Prophet. And Prophet, after his death in 632 at Medina, bequeathed this entire legacy, the land, the universe, to Ummah. And Ummah has waged a jihad, Ghazwa, battle, and they will get Ghanima, holy kums, the land, the profits, the gold, and lot of plunder. This is the root belief system that was responsible partition of Punjab, partition of India, partition of Israel, Palestine, and so on. The director is a Quranic God, claimed as a Quranic God, Allah, and script is already there. That is in Quran, in the Hadith, in the Sharia. Sharia is Islamic law. Hadith is saying of the Prophet Muhammad. Quran is the revelation from Allah to Muhammad. Hadith is what Allah acted through the body of Muhammad, his doings, Hadith. The heroes in this movie is Allama Iqbal, who passed away, I think 1938 or so, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And Indian National Congress played a cameo role. In a sense, so you have a Bollywood movie, runs for nearly 3 hours, 180 minutes. Most of the time the camera is focused on the hero and heroes. Very short time you will see certain cameos coming. Technically there are also actors, but more relevant term is a cameo, the minor role. That was the role played by Indian National Congress. Projected villains were British, everybody claimed, because British never colonized India extensively. Their numbers is microscopic. All of them left in 1947. There is no voters from British stock who lived in India. Like Muslims came from Central Asia, Turania, Persia, Arabia, very microscopic them, and converted large local population, Ummah. They were voters in the partition India. So the rulers were very careful not to offend them and tell them that Islam was the culprit. So they throw the mud at the British anyway. They left. There are no voters. That is the reason. So the director of this entire thing is Quranic godling Allah, and the script is written in Quran, Hadith. If you read them, Sharia, the heroes are Iqbal and Muhammad. If these heroes refuse to play the role, they should have brought some other hero and into the picture. So the personalities doesn't matter. Blaming of the Muslim League Jinnah is a trivial thing. The cameo role. So we'll look at little more detail. After this talk, we will have a solid understanding of what is happening today. Rapid demographic increase of Muslim population, their street violence and the rioting every time. And even after giving 5 provinces like West Punjab, Sindh, frontier province, that is Peshawar, Balochistan, East Bengal or Purbi Bengal, they are not happy and they still want more. So in a sense, we will not discuss much about after World War I broke down when Hitler moved his armies into Poland. 2 days later, His Majesty government in London and government in France, they declared war on the Nazi Germany ruler, Hitler, and World War II officially started. In India, Governor General at that time, Lord Linlithgow, went into All India Radio, announced that India is at war with Germany, where we have no geographical contiguity with Germany, or no way involved, that is thousands of kilometers away. Even then he said we are at war with them. That was not acceptable to majority of Indians, and Congress protested. And in order to conciliate, they sent a Cripps mission giving a vague idea of India will get a sort of self-rule at that time called dominion status within the British Commonwealth and so on. And Congress governments quit, and as usual Quit India movement happened that eventually led India Congress leaders, as usual, are more interested in burning the small buildings or bridges or railways, and British government, in order to maintain Ghost government law and order, put them in comfortable jail like Aga Khan Palace in Ahmednagar and the Balghat region of this territory of Maharashtra gave them very good comfortable facilities to Nehru, Gandhiji and also on. They lacked the mettle of Rana Pratap Singh or Shivaji Rao Bhonsle or Shambhuji Rao Bhonsle or Baji Rao one Pishwa or Mahaji Shinde. They were not made of that mettle. They're just agitators essentially. So we cannot expect much from them. Then they were released afterwards as usual, and they were not sent to Andaman jail like Savarkar. They were not sent to Burma and Mandalay jail like Tilak. So the later day Congressmen were not that mettle, that we are all aware, and that was unfortunately a limitation. Then Simla Conference in 1945 between Lord Wavell came, and after Simla Conference, Wavell plan was also not accepted as usual, that Islam was hell-bent to snatch away as much territory as possible. Their ideological frontiers are very clear, and Congress leaders were very confused. They were not very clear at all. They were just shouting the high-sounding slogans. Then cabinet, after 1945-46 December in the winter time, general elections to the Central Assembly, we can say the parliament at that time, occurred. Then provincial elections occurred, and all the reservations were there. Muslim constituencies, with all the Muslim constituencies returned the Muslim League candidates, 99.999%. That means in Punjab, where Muslims are majority, Sindh Muslims were majority, Bengal Muslims were majority, they didn't win the spectacular victories. Local parties in Bengal like Krushik Shamik Party and in Sindh local party, in Punjab Unionist parties won. The spectacular victories for Muslim League came from United Province, Bombay Presidency, Madras Presidency, from Muslim constituency. That means the Muslim minority provinces wanted Pakistan. That's how the Islam works. That's how we have to understand Islam to understand the partition. Then the Nehru government, Nehruji formed the government, interim government. Muslim League didn't join. They declared direct action day in August 1946, 1 year before partition and independence. Then large-scale rioting started. That's how the Islam grew. They know the things that work at ground level. When Islam was announced, the people of Mecca didn't buy that product. They already has many guards. They're pretty happy with their guards. They didn't have laughed at when Muhammad said that Allah was revealing to him and they have to forgo the entire guards and accept him as a mouthpiece of Allah. All these things they didn't accept. But Muslims won the war, Badr, they finally accepted. So that's how the Talwar finally played to force this particular idea. They know this works, and they started Naukali riots. Naukali is a town on the Ganga Sagar, that's the Bay of Bengal, is south of Tripura or Komila, and south of Dhaka, north of Chittagong, is a Muslim majority district, Naukali district or Komila district, sometimes called Tippera district. That is different from princely state of Tripura. Large scale, the Muslims butchered, dishonored Hindu women, and Gandhiji wealth and all those things. And finally, Congress felt terrified by this Naukali riots, Delhi riots, Kohat riots, and Rawalpindi riots, agreed for partition. And Mountbatten, after taking all the Congress leaders into consideration, Gandhiji, Nehruji, Patel, Rajgopalachari, all this, announced the partition plan, even though finally Radcliffe line came and about. These are general things that talk about. But what is the thing that the local converted Muslims, they said the land where their forefathers lived is impure. Napak. Pak means a Persian word, means pure. That means when a person is converted from local belief system, a kafir into Islam, and they populate the land, they become automatically pure. That's the Islamic concept. And If there are majority of the Muslims, non-Muslims live, Kafirs live in a land during Gaur and Ghurid and Mughal invasion, India was, those regions were Muslim minority, Hindu majority. Still the land is pure because it is ruled by a Mussalman, a believer, populated by majority Kafirs. It's still a Pak. When the land was not under their control, it becomes impure. The land has to be converted. So Islam is a concept of ilam. It divides the world into light. Light means the land ruled, populated by Muslims. Jahiliya, the culture that is practiced by, that means pre-Islamic culture, before the birth of Muhammad, before the birth of revelation. After the birth, still populated by Kafirs. Kafiri culture is called Jahili culture. So Muslims call anybody Jahili, means ignorant, the period of ignorant. And they are Illam, Allama. So you got the Iqbal's name, Allama Iqbal, that came from the word Illam, enlightened in their way of thinking. Then the believers of this ideology are called Mu'mins, also popularly called in English word Muslims, but they prefer to be called Musalmans, Mu'mins. Kafirs are the people who didn't accept this belief system. Then the land that is conquered by Islam, or where Muslims are majority, is Darul Islam, the land that is populated by Kafirs, which is under Kafiri culture, Jahili culture, ignorant culture, is Darul Har. So Islam divides the land into Illam, Mu'mins, Darul Islam, and into Jahiliya, Kafirs, Darul. They were there at the time British were departing, and they found the Congress leadership are pushovers. They can easily be pushover. They tested it lot of years before, starting from 6 demands, 16 demands, finally Pakistan itself. Congress leaders first protested. They said they won't accept. Eventually they accepted. So finally they accepted. So the partition of India, according to Voice of India think tanks, Mahayogi Ramswarup, Acharya Sitaram Goel, and Professor Coenrod Elst, is based upon the concept of Darul Harb, Darul Islam, Kafirs and Mu'mins, dark period Jahili culture and Illam. And Islamic theology prescribes a war between Darul Harb and Darul Islam, Kafirs and Muslims and Jahiliya into Islam. That's called holy war. The Muslims has to wage the war or Ghazwa, and they will get a profit eventually, the territory, the plunders, jar, jameen, and females to take away to them and made them and produced. All those things Islamic invaders have done. And Islamic theology guarantees the eventually triumph of Ummah. Ummah is a Muslim community. It says Allah has mandated Al-Sind, the entire Al-Watan, the entire world, to the Rasul, the Prophet. And Prophet, after his death in 632 at Medina, he bequeathed, lent it to Ummah. Ummah belonged. And whoever controls that land at that time locally, legatees, means legal heirs, has to wear the jihad and Ghazwa and get the territory, the control. So, in this entire process of partition of the Punjab, partition of India, the director, the person who directed the entire thing, is not Muslim League, is not British Viceroy Wavell or Lord Mountbatten. They didn't do it. And the director were Quranic God called Allah. The script, the matter is already there. If you read Quran, that is the revelation of Allah to Prophet. And Hadith, that means whatever Allah is the God that lives somewhere in the phantom world. Nobody saw him. And he acted through the body of Muhammad. Muhammad said something, but they were not revelations, but they were really Allah wanted. That's Hadith. Quran is the revelation of Allah to Muhammad. Hadith is unofficial revelations. Allah acted through the body of Muhammad. Hadith. Allah spoke through the word of Muhammad. That is Quran. Maybe Allah didn't find any good qualified people. We didn't know. That is debatable. And the entire thing is written in Sharia, the Islamic law. If you read it, The division between Darul Islam, Darul Harb, Mumins and Kafis, Ilm light, Jahiliyyah darkness are already there. The heroes at the time, the directors in Bollywood will select certain heroes, right? If one hero, whatever reason there is no call sheets or not available, busy as a good offer, he will not accept it. They will go for other heroes. At that time, hero was available, Jinnah, and that really doesn't matter to blame him. He led the Muslim League Party that won 1945 selections, and he died within the 13 months or so after governor generalship and formation of Pakistan. And if he was not there, there should be some other hero. So the person does not matter. And the Islam ideologies that matters for them. And as usual, the Congress leaders plays a cameos role. And they were so terrified of violence, they couldn't understand what is going on. They lived with Muslims, Islam, they led with them, but they were unable to formulate a strong strategy, even unable to understand what is going on, because they were all trained in British educational system. Even overall, they lived in atmosphere where Hindu intellectualism was very poor. Even I won't blame entirely on Congress leadership as well. Even the voice of think tank doesn't blame them completely. It was overall Hindu intellectual failure, understand the ideological frontiers of Islam, ideological frontiers of Hindu homeland, where unfortunately Congress leadership lived. That is what, if you talk in an objective manner, you have to talk about it. Nowadays, lot of so-called Hindu leadership always blame the Congress for partition, but that is also not correct. They were not the villains or the people responsible for that completely. It was the intellectual failure of Hindus overall. Whatever came after partition, like India, all these leadership declared a secular country. Doesn't matter, you convert from Hindus to Islam, really doesn't matter, he said. The numbers are increasing. So it lacked the ideological frontier, like using the word secular without responsible manner and misinterpreting the words, all these things. So it's an overall intellectual failure till the voice of India think tank formulated ideological basis what is going on in the country. So essentially heroes were, if we say Jinnah, and the script was Quran director, Quranic God Allah, cameo role played by Indian National Congress, and projected villains were British. So British were made as villains because there were no British in India to vote for them in the general elections or furious elections. British didn't partition. Wherever they went, they divide and rule. Division was already there, instituted by Islam, by Quranic God Allah, like Darul Islam, Darul Harb, Mumins and Kafis, Ilm. British were not the people who divided or introduced Muslim, non-Muslim divide that existed ever since Islam won Battle of Badr. Muhammad established Islam firmly in Arabian Peninsula. The latter the Umayyad rulers and other Arab dynasties and took over throughout the world, and the Mughals and so on. It was already there. British didn't partition many land. They ruled Nigeria, southern part, Yorubas and Igbos, Christian communities lived northern part, Hausha, Fulani lived Kano, Kaduna, like that. They didn't partition southern part and gave to their co-religionist. The Yorubas or Fulani, southern Nigeria, they joined and left. And Malaysia also, they gave their own territory, Sabah and Sarawak, to sultans of Malaya. They didn't partition that. They didn't partition, like a lot of Tamils in Jaffna region were Christians, and they didn't partition Sri Lanka into Kandy Christian. They didn't do it. So that is wrong. If we say British partition, divided and ruled, that is wrong. Of course, British divided and ruled. That's everywhere the imperialists do. That's not specific to British. Today also, the rulers who succeeded India are dividing even more. They're dividing into caste basis, sub-caste basis for votes. So the same thing can be thrown at these rulers also. So there is the word, whenever you say the British partitioned India is wrong, British divided and ruled is also wrong or partially correct. The division of Darul Harb, Darul Islam, Kafirs, Mumins, Mussalmans, dark, ignorant Jahili culture Illam was already done by a high-sounding entity called Quranic God Allah, enforced through the mouth of his prophet Muhammad. The partition of India, the director is Allah, and the script is present in Quran, Hadith, Sharia, and heroes were Jinnah or Iqbal, and cameo role played by Indian National Congress leadership, projected villains or British administrators like Mountbatten, Wavell, or Linlithgow, or the Kurjan, and so on. That's not quite correct. So, in this episode, I try to give you 1947 Indian partition, or partition of Assam, partition of Sylhet, partition of Bengal, 1947, East Bengal, West Bengal, and partition of Punjab, all can be looked broad historical perspective of Islamic imperialism consolidation on Hindu homeland, land of five rivers, and land of Dharma Gurus, Sikh Gurus, and land of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, a major political victory of Battle of Thaneshwar, Battle of Tarain, where Prithviraj Chauhan lost, and third Battle of Panipat, again Marathas lost. In the Battle of Lahore, where Jinnah waged the next war, battle, 1940, Lahore Declaration or Pakistan Declaration. So that's in brief about a partition of Punjab in ideological level, and hope this will put you in solid understanding whenever people in India talk about partition. If they talk a lot about the World War, Linlithgow, Cripps Mission, Simla Conference, and Quit India movement, this is only a called noise. It is not the real signal. The real signal lies behind it. You should be aware. When they are talking about this and talking about, if they don't mention any word about Illam, Jahiliya, Momins and Kafirs, Darul Islam, Darul Harb, and Ummah, that means the story is not complete. Whether the person talking is not aware of it or ignores about it should be in your mind, and you should look little more than these buzzwords. Who partitioned India were not British. It is the Islam that partitioned India. That was the idea. Voice of India think tank, Mahayogi Sri Ram Swarup, Acharya Sitaram Goel, Dr. Coenrod Elt recently put forward in their scholarly research. As usual, previously I was thinking the British partitioned India. After looking at studying their works, I vomited the old idea and I changed the mind and start looking what they said has a lot of truth in it. The partition of India was done by Islam based on the concept of Illam Jahiliya, Momins Kafirs, Darul Islam, Darul Harb. That is west of Radcliffe Line or Ravi River, east of Ravi River. If you go here, west of Hooghly River or Bhagirathi River, that is Paschim Bengal. East of Bhagirathi River, Hooghly River, that is Purbi Punjab, Rangpur, Dinajpur, Dhaka, Sylhet, Chittagong, Barisal, and so on. Darul Harb, Darul Islam, Jahiliya, Illam, Momins and Kafirs. This is the thing you should keep in mind when discussing or understanding of partition of India in 1947. This is our facilitator from South Asia, J. Reddy, and we look at a fascinating journey of the land of five rivers, the land of Vedic civilization, the mother Sindhu and Punjab in more details in the coming episodes. Thank you very much and see you later.